Hey everyone, this is David Brown with the migration update for April 14th, 2022 from the Braddock Bay Hawk Watch. The weather was pretty variable today. In the morning we had warm southwest winds and mostly sunny skies. And then mid to late morning we had a big cold front push in that really increased the speed of the winds, shifted them more west, and brought cloudy skies and some rain showers. This photo here was taken a few hours later. Just as the rain showers were ending, you can see some blue sky on the horizon. And just overall, not much action midday, but we had a big push ahead of the cold front. And then as we got later in the afternoon, the sun came back out and the winds stayed westerly and even a little bit southwest at times and not quite as strong. So we had a flight pick back up in the afternoon. Let's take a look at some bird photos. Here we have a great blue heron. Here we have a broad-winged hawk, and early in the broad-winged migration like this, most of them, or pretty much all of them this time of year, are going to be adults. The juveniles migrate later. But the one distinctive thing about broad-winged hawks is they get into what's called a paring knife shape, where they have this curved front of the wing, but the trailing edge is almost a perfectly straight line. And this is a pretty good field mark, and also the wings look pretty pointy. One thing to remember about broad-winged hawks is that the wingtip is only made up of 4 feathers. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's more obvious in a soar, but it gives you a different wingtip shape than you see with red tails and red shoulders. So here we have another example of what I mean, with the wingtip is only made up of 4 feathers. So again, this is an adult broad-winged hawk. So we see 1, 2, 3, 4 feathers that make up the wingtip. So it gives it a pointy look. Red tails and red shoulders have 5 feathers, so they have more of a squared off or rounded wingtip. The other distinctive field mark on adult broadwings is the tail. They look like they have a dark tail with a single broad stripe. Actually, if you saw it close up, there's a few different white stripes, but from a distance you just see this one broad white stripe. Compare that to the red-shouldered hawk adults, where we always talk about it being like chalk lines on a blackboard, so thin white lines. Broadwings, single broad band of white. Here we have part of a migrating group of turkey vultures, and the biggest push of turkey vultures occurred just ahead of the cold front mid-morning. I think the 1 hour we had something like 500 or 600 turkey vultures, and we ended up with just over 1,000 turkey vultures for the day. So the strong turkey vulture migration continues, especially on these favorable winds. Here we have a female American kestrel. Remember, kestrels are falcons, so they have pointy wings. And we can tell it's a female just from the markings here on the upper breast. They have some like vertical streaking. The easier way to tell them apart is if you get a look at the top side or if the tail is spread. Here we have a group of 3 sandhill cranes that migrated through. Here is an adult sharp-shinned hawk, and some sharp-shins this time of year are migrating through very low and some are migrating through very high. But I would say this is a typical view of one migrating through low. So a couple things to point out. First of all, we know it's a sharp-shinned hawk because it's a bit smaller and more compact than Cooper's hawks. Small head that barely sticks out past the pushed forward wrists. We also see a very squared off tail, and this is probably a male because we see it's even a little bit notched in the center compared to the more rounded tail tip to the Cooper's hawks. And we know this bird is an adult because it has orange horizontal barring on the breast. Here we have 2 immature bald eagles that were playing or fighting. Take your pick. And here we have a classic adult bald eagle. Here's an adult red-tailed hawk. Fairly faint patagial bars on this one, but we see the belly band. And it's an adult, so it has a dark trailing edge to the wing and a red tail. Here we have a juvenile bald eagle. And it looks like it's missing a feather here. I wonder if it's finally beginning to molt. Here we have an adult male northern harrier, also called a gray ghost. Nice look at the coloration of these birds, are gray or silver. And they have the white rump patch that all northern harriers show. Here we have a male American kestrel, and The distinctive thing about this one is the tail is forked. I don't know if it's missing some feathers here or what, but normally they don't look like this. And also the wingtip here looks a little funny, just the way that the feathers are folded. But I would suspect that there's some missing feathers going on down here in the tail. This was a nice highlight late in the day. This was a flock of 19 sandhill cranes, which I think might be the biggest flock of sandhill cranes I've ever seen here. About a month ago, I had a group of 17, but I'm pretty sure 19 is my new record anyway. Here we have an osprey high overhead, and this is kind of that classic M shape that ospreys can show in a glide. So otherwise, just a very distinctive bird. You know, black and white patterning, very lanky looking. And here we have a juvenile northern harrier. So remember on that adult male we just looked at, those are kind of gray and silver, whereas the adult females and the juveniles of both sexes are more brownish looking like this one. We know this one's a juvenile because it's mostly plain underneath. It has a little bit of streaking, but this isn't enough to make it an adult female, which normally have quite a bit of streaking on the upper breast and a lot of markings in the patagial areas as well. So this one's a juvenile, and it could be either sex. I think you can look at the eye color or something to differentiate them, but for normal hawk watching, you can't differentiate the sexes of the juveniles. If we look at eBird, today had 59 species, and as always, I'll put a link to the checklist and you can take a look for yourself. And if we take a look at hawk count for our migrant raptor totals, today we had 1,027 turkey vultures, 6 osprey, 22 bald eagles, 15 northern harriers, 102 sharp-shinned hawks, 5 Cooper's hawks, 2 red-shouldered hawks, 11 broad-winged hawks, 33 red-tailed hawks, 1 rough-legged hawk, 1 golden eagle, 17 American kestrels, 1 merlin, and 1 peregrine falcon, for a total of 1,244 migrants today. Taking a look at the forecast, tomorrow looks windy with showers moving in later in the day. High in the mid-50s, winds southwest at 25 to 35 miles per hour with occasional stronger gusts. So this is the ideal wind condition. We love our southwest winds, especially when they're warm southwest winds, which they usually are. And the main concern for tomorrow is just going to be the strength of the wind. So when the southwest winds are too strong, it pushes everything out towards the lake or even out over the lake. So from the platform, we're usually having to stare out towards the lake to even be able to spot and identify the birds. When it's things like turkey vultures, that's not that much of a problem. But when you get the sharp-shinned hawks and the red-tailed hawks and everything blown over that way, it just makes them really frustrating to identify, especially without a spotting scope. And if you have a spotting scope, it's usually shaking and blowing around because of the wind. So I would expect a lot of birds to be pushed towards the lake. Might have some birds coming overhead at the platform as well. But just be aware of that if you plan on coming out, that the winds are going to be strong. It'll probably push the birds so they won't be right overhead. I'll also mention that it seems like the morning will be the better time of day if I had to guess, just because the winds won't be so strong and it seems like there might be a bit of sunshine. Whereas later in the day, the winds are really going to get strong and there might be more clouds or eventually some rain showers moving in. For Saturday, it's looking mostly cloudy with periods of light rain early, possible snow mixing in, high in the low 40s, winds west-northwest at 10 to 15 miles per hour. So that's looking like kind of a cold, gloomy day. I know that the Raptor ID class, many people are planning to come out, and we might see some things. We'll see how exactly the weather turns out. If it stops raining, we might get some birds. Those winds aren't terrible. So no matter what, there's stuff to look at. There's been a lot of ducks on the bay, and we'll make the most of it. But overall, Saturday is not looking like a great day. For Sunday, we're looking at some morning clouds, then mainly sunny, high in the mid-40s, and winds west-northwest at 15 to 25. So overall, a decent wind direction, but maybe a bit stronger than we would prefer, just enough to make it uncomfortable on the platform, especially if the temperature is only going up to the mid 40s. So I would expect maybe moderate migration that day. We'll see if the forecast changes as we get closer. All right, that's it for today. And I know that we've had pretty good conditions the past few days, a lot of people coming out to the platform. And I know the songbird migration has also been pretty spectacular. Some people out on the East Spit this morning had over 200 northern flickers migrate by, along with quite a few other birds. So just a lot of birds migrating overall when we're having these southerly and southwesterly winds. So just a lot of good birding in the Rochester area right now, as we have a lot of new arrivals on the warm southerly winds. If you like this video, please hit the like button and be sure to subscribe and hit the notifications bell so you don't miss any of these daily updates from the Braddock Bay Hawk Watch. This is David Brown. Thanks for watching.
Hmm.